Guys, we've got some big news happening right now when it comes to the SEC. They are continuing the trend with many of the other conferences. As it says, they plan to eliminate divisions. Now, many people already expected this due to the future inclusion of Texas and Oklahoma into the SEC, but they do as well, according to this report from their little spring meetings, which are happening in Florida. They plan to eliminate divisions. It says SEC officials will continue to discuss two models for college football scheduling Wednesday at its spring meetings, but no official decision is expected as the conference's leaders examine 8 and 9 game models for 2025 and beyond. The SEC needs to adopt a 9-game model for sure. It's ridiculous at this point. I think they plan on doing that, but this 8-game model, I understand the SEC is the best conference in college football. I'm not debating it. The 8-team model gives them such an advantage over a conference like the Big Ten. You're talking about the Big Ten not having 2 teams in the playoff. If the Big Ten would have had an 8-team model where you're only, playing 8 conference games instead of 9, that other games maybe is a cupcake game against an FCS school, I think there's 2 or 3 years where both Ohio State and Penn State, if they didn't match up, would be in the playoff. It's like the main problem for the Big Ten, Ohio State and Penn State face each other every year, guaranteed. Ohio State and Michigan face each other every year, guaranteed. Alabama and Georgia play each other like once every 5 years. So the whole 8-game conference schedule, the fact that Georgia's in the East, Bama's in the West, it's a major advantage for getting 2 teams into the playoff if you're the SEC. Not saying the SEC isn't deserving of 2 teams because they clearly have the best conference. Georgia and Alabama, you could argue, are the 2 most talented overall rosters in college football. Although another SEC team, Texas A&M, might make an argument. Same with Ohio State. But they need to adopt a 9-team format, especially with Oklahoma and Texas joining in 2025. It gives them a major advantage. If the Big Ten had an 8-team format, there would be several years where I think both Ohio State and Penn State could possibly be in the playoff, as well as Ohio State and Michigan. It says the push for a 9-game schedule appears to be gaining traction, and a 3-6 scheduling rotation, 3 permanent rivals and 6 rotating opponents, is the option with the most momentum. Sources told 247. Quote from Nick Saban, he says, "I've always been for improving the college schedule, trying to eliminate some of these games that you play that players and supporters are not really interested in. I think the 9-game format is a start in that direction." Well, certainly it is. Certainly, if you play another, good SEC opponent, even if it's like a Tennessee or a Florida or someone like that, even like an Arkansas, that's going to be significantly better than facing a Louisiana Monroe, than facing, a Southern Miss. That's who Alabama normally plays for their non-conference. And then we've got this quote from the SEC commissioner saying they're focused more on a single division model. So it certainly is trending that way. The SEC eliminating divisions, going with hopefully a 9-team conference schedule. And then this is something that I'll explain why this is even a thing. It's crazy. It says the SEC playoff still in a folder someplace. So this is one of those things that really makes you say why. And this is there's no way this happens. I'll just say it right now. There's no way this happens. This was proposed as a hypothetical if for whatever reason the college football playoff after 2025 remains at 4 teams, which I think there is 0 chance. The college football playoff should already be expanded to a minimum of 8 teams. I've proposed 12. I think that's the best number. It's ridiculous how in every other sport, there's at least, 12 teams that make the playoffs. In college football, there's only 4. People say, oh, it'll make the regular season less important. That's ridiculous. It won't do that at all. The regular season will still be very important because if you implement a 12-team playoff, you give the first 4 teams byes. Those first 4 seeds are still very important to get. But it says the SEC may one day conduct its own postseason playoff That's never happening. I don't know why they said that. But don't count on the idea gaining traction at the conference's spring's meetings this week. The idea of the SEC conducting its own postseason and skipping the college football playoff is an extreme measure that would require a long list of hypothetical situations occurring. Basically, the hypothetical situation, just like I explained, the thing is, when Texas and Oklahoma join the SEC, there's going to be such a massive scheduling imbalance. When you look at the SEC versus all the other conferences, this is why Texas and Oklahoma joining the SEC is horrible for the sport. But it's going to create such an imbalance where the SEC is going to have such harder schedules. If you keep the playoff at only 4 teams, what you will have is SEC teams playing such harder schedules than teams in the Pac-12, then teams in the ACC, then teams in the Big 10. There's going to be like 3-loss SEC teams arguing they should make a 4-team college football playoff because of their schedule, with Texas and Oklahoma joining. And people make fun of Texas and they say, well, Texas hasn't been good. But if you asked me, who would I rather face every year, like for 10 years straight? Would I rather face Texas or Iowa? I would pick Iowa every single time. Now, I know Iowa's been better than Texas recently in terms of on-the-field success, but Texas, they're a top 10 team in terms of overall talent. They've got a good young, quarterback-type guru head coach in Steve Sarkisian, who has attracted Quinn Ewers to the program. They're leaders for Arch Manning right now, the number 1 overall player in 2023. They've got superstar talent. They know how to recruit. They are Texas University. They've got a great recruiting hotbed there, in-state talent. So these are, Texas and Oklahoma joining the SEC. That is a major, major get for the conference. And basically the whole idea of the SEC-only playoff is if, for whatever reason, this is not happening, but I'm just saying, if the college football playoff remained at 4 teams in 2026, I think you would get some talk of the SEC possibly having their own playoff. It needs to be expanded because there's going to be such a huge schedule imbalance. We don't want it to come to... if you're like, let's just say you're Georgia University and you have 2 losses on your schedule, and one of your losses is at Alabama and the other loss is at Oklahoma. Like, you could argue you should be in the playoff over any 1-loss Big Ten champion. You see the scheduling imbalance that could happen from that. So the whole idea of the SEC having, an SEC invitational type playoff where they say, screw this, this is a threat to make sure the playoff gets expanded by 2026 to at least 8 teams, preferably 12 teams. And I know a lot of people out there are going to say that's ridiculous. We don't want the playoff expanded. Guys, we're human beings. We don't like change in general. But once the change happens, once we get the 12-team playoff, 3 years into the 12 teams playoffs life cycle, we're going to be wondering why we never had this thing from the beginning. I'm telling you, the 12-team playoff is the future. Get ready for it in 2026. And then they also talk, this is just another thing I wanted to mention. They're talking about NIL. South Carolina's head coach says, quote, it's somewhat become pay for play, which is not what it intended to be. So yeah, the NIL continues to be a complete mess because the NCAA has no authority to police it, and obviously the SEC is not going to solve that situation. That is an NCAA issue. So that's just what's going on right now with the SEC meetings. We're getting the eliminated divisions with the SEC, especially with Texas and Oklahoma joining. We should get eliminated divisions, hopefully, by the start of next year, you would hope. And then as well, the SEC needs to move to a 9-team conference schedule. It is unfair that they only play 8 conference games and then they load up on FCS opponents. You should be playing 9 conference games and 3 non-conference games, with at least 1 non-conference game being a home-and-home with a Power 5 opponent. For me, I would say that is how every non-conference/conference schedule should work in college football. You have 9 conference opponents. You can have 2 cupcakes in the non-conference, but then you have to have a home-and-home with a legit Power 5 team when it comes. Like, you see Michigan's non-conference schedule this year. I mean, it's like Colorado State, Hawaii, and UConn. UCLA's non-conference is horrific. Like, you got to have at least one home and home, every single year, I feel like. Like, you see how Ohio State's doing it. I think Ohio State's doing a great job this year. You've got the tough game with Notre Dame. You start the home and home this year and next year, and then you've got the two easy opponents at home. You've got the local MAC team in Toledo that you face, and then also randomly Arkansas State. I don't know the Arkansas State thing, but either way, that's how I think scheduling should work in college football. We've also got this. This is really... it says college football bowl projections for the 2022 season summer edition. So they literally project every single bowl game. I think that's a bit of an overkill. I was expecting just New Year's Six bowls, but I saw this. Look at the Idaho Potato Bowl. It says San Jose State versus Miami University. Miami of Ohio University? I mean, that's disrespectful to Tyler Van Dyke. Do they seriously have the U playing in the Idaho Potato Bowl? I love Miami, guys. I have Miami as at least a preseason top 15 team with Tyler Van Dyke. They've recruited so well recently. They've got some blue chip defensive prospects going into their sophomore seasons, like Leonard Taylor, who's a huge defensive tackle. I think Miami's going to make some noise in the ACC this year. Once again, Tyler Van Dyke. Man, could you imagine if they would have gotten Jordan Addison? Oh, if Miami would have gotten Jordan Addison, you'd think they would have the collective to do it. But USC ended up getting him. I'm just going to I'm just going to preview, these projections on the New Year's Six games. So they have the Sugar Bowl, Oklahoma versus Texas A&M. That would be an intriguing matchup. I could see both of those teams making a New Year's Six game. With Oklahoma, it'll be interesting with Dylan Gabriel, very good quarterback, but he is coming off an injury. Texas A&M, extremely young. You're going to see a lot of true freshmen play a lot on that defense. Of course, the historic recruiting class they had, we'll be seeing a lot of true freshmen. The Cotton Bowl, Notre Dame versus Houston. The AAC... When I was looking at it, I did not see a top 30 team this year. So that is interesting that the group of five team they're saying is Houston. Really, I think that for group of five, it's wide open at this point. Which group of five team is going to claim that New Year's Six bowl spot? They have Notre Dame and Houston. That would not be good for Notre Dame. If you're in a New Year's Six game, you want to face a Power 5 team. It's better for recruiting. The Orange Bowl, Clemson and Wisconsin. I'm really high on Wisconsin. They've got a superstar running back. They've built such a great infrastructure. Unfortunately for Wisconsin, in the Big Ten, they've got a road game at Ohio State. That's worst case scenario. If you're in the West, that's worst case scenario. But they've got to, it has them versus Clemson. Clemson, we know the story. It's all about the quarterback. Is DJ Uiagalelei going to step up, or are they going to have to go with their superstar true freshman quarterback, Cade Kubnak? That'll be an interesting scenario there. Clemson's defense is loaded with talent. You're talking about Barrett Carter, a future superstar linebacker, Trenton Simpson, a former five-star, Miles Murphy, a pass rusher, Brian Breezy, another superstar pass rusher. Their defense is absolutely loaded. The Peach Bowl, so this is the 1v4 semifinal matchup, Alabama and Utah. Utah is going to be a very sexy pick for people that don't want to pick the same teams. They don't want to pick Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State. Utah's that one pick that everyone's going to have when it comes to their playoff projections that's a little bit different. And I think USC might actually be better than Utah. I understand it's a major projection, but USC is certainly more talented. I believe Utah gets USC at home. That is huge for Utah. Utah returning a lot of talent. Their running back, the transfer from Cincinnati, Thomas, he had 18 rushing touchdowns last year. This kid could be a Heisman dark horse. That's amazing. And then Utah, they do lose Devin Lloyd. That's a superstar linebacker. That's a tough loss. But it's an interesting pick. It's the sexy pick, right? Everyone wants to have a team that's different. Utah's going to be the team this year. And then Alabama, they return the Heisman Trophy winner. They return an unbelievable superstar pass rusher. They have over, I'd say, like a 70% chance to make the playoff. And then the other semifinal game, they have Georgia and Ohio State. So Ohio State is very similar to Alabama. I think there's an above 70% chance they make the playoff. Georgia, I'm not high on. And I understand Georgia is a reload, not rebuild team, but they lost 5 defensive starters as first-round picks. That defense is completely new for the most part, although Ringo's back. They definitely have talent. But just like, can Georgia on offense replicate with Stetson Bennett the same production? I find it hard to believe. Brock Bowers is a beast, though, man. He really is. I mean, I could see Georgia making the playoffs, but personally, I will not be projecting Georgia to make the playoffs. And then this, I'm not even sure what the point of this is. So it says, the last time each Texas college football team appeared in the AP Top 25 poll, and it's like all the major universities, are 2021, 2022. I just didn't understand. Like, this is useless. Obviously, all the FCS teams are not. I guess North Texas, the last time they made it was 1959. UTEP 2005. Texas Tech, they made it in 2018. I don't remember that. They must have been ranked 25th. TCU should be underrated good this year. I think TCU wins 8 games. Early projection. I haven't looked at their schedule. But the Big 12, I'm high on it. I think it's the 3rd best or did I say that? No, I think the Big 12 might be the 3rd best conference. Or maybe the ACC. The ACC is not bad, guys. It really isn't. When you talk about Wake Forest, Clemson, and then you've got a team like Virginia, who's a dark horse team with Brennan Armstrong. It should be interesting. But guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you're following me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description. I'm, of course, the Depressed Ginger. Thank you for watching.